today we are having Pablo Villalba from Teambox and 8 Feet, and Alex is going to conduct today our interview. And the first hour talk, he's going to talk about Mars-based, his company. So with no further ado, we're going throughout the open mic session. As I told you, you have 1 minute to say whatever you want to ask something or to offer something to the community. So who is going to talk today? Who wants the chance to ask for something or to offer something?
Yeah? How many times have you been welcomed as a rock star?
Never, actually. It was my dream. So, okay.
You were not that famous before this, I guess.
I'm still not very famous, but thanks for having me today.
Cool. Thank you for your time. Actually, we do this, for those that you don't know it, we do this because we don't pay our speakers to come here. They pay us with their presence and their time. So really thank you, Pablo. I hope you enjoy this. What do you think of the open mic and the presentation? What do you think of that? What do you think, especially about the pitches?
I think it's a great way to break the ice, but you guys need to start doing this in English if you're gonna be changing anything. But it's pretty cool, yeah.
Cool. For those of you who don't know Pablo, well, he started Teambox in 2008, right when he was in the middle of his Erasmus in Paris. Teambox, as I said before, well, now called Red Booth, is an online collaboration tool for big teams, all in one, very holistic and integrated services for team management, right? Mm-hmm. And he wrote it there. He wrote it during his Erasmus, and then when he came back, he was like, okay, I'm gonna make it big with that, right? So here in Barcelona, I think he met his very first investor, Jordi Priu, which we had in December. How many people were in the event of Jordi Priu? Not many, because we were, okay, oh yeah, that's cool. Of course you were there, Alex. You're part of the team. Some people. Yeah. So Jordi Priu, I remember that he explained one of the anecdotes of the night. He told me, yeah, you know, I never invest in one-man projects. So why did he invest in you?
Honestly, I don't know. We just found him in a conference, and it was this moment where you're talking to a lot of people and you're pitching to them, and then you come out of that event and you're like, excited about a lot of people, and this guy was more like asking questions about the project, but didn't seem so interested. And at the end, you know what? He's the only one who was actually interested. But I think he valued early stage stuff. He valued the vision that we had even before we were making revenue. So that's been pretty good for everyone.
It's pretty cool that you say we were, and even though it was you alone, right?
True.
Just fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, you do have this personality disorder thing. You're always like a big group,
Actually, how many people started as a one-man project and said, oh, yeah, we are. You fakers. Well, he told us that he invested in you because he saw the fire in your eyes.
Awesome.
It's really poetic. What did that mean? What?
I don't know, man. He's also like a business owner, and he's one of the most dedicated people I've met to his business. Like, you know how in The Godfather they send the son and he goes like off there and then he has to rebuild the family. Yeah. He kind of did his own thing, like by going to Romania, actually learning Romanian and setting up a company there and everything. So I think he's not really a tech entrepreneur, but he's gone through a lot of the same steps and the same struggle. So we really connected at the beginning.
That's impressive. Actually, right after that, well, some months, years after that, you guys expanded to the United States. You went to Silicon Valley. I think you're based also in Redwood City, and you, I can't remember the name, the number of VC money that you got, like 20 million?
21 million.
21 million. Holy shit, let's give a big applause for this man over here. Well, after that, last year, and this is like the longest introduction I've ever done in Startup Grind. Normally it's 10 seconds, and then you guys complain, I didn't understand what the guy does. Well, tonight, I'm just gonna do it really well. He quit the company, he quit Teambox January 2014. We were both in the States right there. And he comes to me and he says, I've got an idea. I've got two ideas. One is an app for fitness that's gonna beat the shit up of like Fitocracy and Runkeeper and everything. Or I've got a company that sells paella. Well, luckily for you, you went for 8 feet. And 8 feet now is a startup that after 1 year, 1 year and a half, you have more than 3,000 paying customers.
Almost 5,000 by now.
Almost 5,000. Well, actually, in AngelList, it's only like that.
In a couple of weeks, we'll be at 5,000.
In April, you had $30K, I think it was, in monthly revenue. Now?
A little more.
A little more. A little more. And this is just in 1 year. What do you think about it? It's worthy of an applause or not?
Yeah.
Yeah? Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Cool. First question, Pablo, because I've been talking too much, and they have paid to see you talking, not me. Let's start with an easy one. What was your first entrepreneurial experience? Was there something before Teambox?
Yeah, there were many loves. Let's see. The first thing I did was there was this exam in Madrid, and there was a lot of people applying to this exam. So you need to have the questions, and it was kind of hard to get the answers. So we just found where the people from the exam got those questions, and then we kind of collected all the answers by sending people to the exam and kind of preparing that thing. So we did a little academy online, and that was just a small thing that I did with my sister and a friend. And we tried charging and said, okay, what's going to happen? And I had my friend go and give flyers at the entrance of the exam. So after a few months, we were making a few hundred euros, which was kind of exciting because I was 20. And eventually we were making 2,000 a month in revenue. So it was pretty cool. But the thing is, it's just an exam, and there's only like 100 people a year taking it. So that wasn't going to grow a lot more. So that was the first one. Then I was thinking, okay, that's pretty cool. So maybe I should try something more advanced, more tech. So we came up with this idea that when there's a power line, you need to connect this tower with this tower. And usually to do that, you have to tear down all the trees in the way. And that's pretty expensive. So we saw, this was the year 2005 or 6. So we just came up with these helicopters. And I thought, this is pretty awesome. So we made a helicopter with a camera, video camera, and you could have these goggles and put them on.
You guys invented drones and virtual reality?
Yeah, the thing with the story is that we made the thing, and we made a prototype, and there was a cable, so you could literally connect two power things, and we made videos with that and everything. So then we didn't have any money, and we went to the government because I didn't know about entrepreneurship yet. And we said, hey, we want some funding for this. What do you think about it? And we went to Fedeti, and they said, you know what? That doesn't really look like innovation to me. It looks more like you're connecting devices. And I'm like, what do you mean? We're making fucking helicopters. And they were like, no, because a helicopter exists, a camera exists, a cable exists, so you're just putting them together. That's not innovation. So we ran out of money there. And then being a developer, I thought, well, next thing I do is better if I do it with something that I can do myself. So worst case, I don't run out of money. And that's how we started Teambox. Cool.
And why did you think that an online collaboration tool was going to be useful to you or to a lot of people?
Well, from the previous 2 projects, I was always working with people. And we were using different tools, sometimes Basecamp, sometimes Google Docs. But we always had that problem that you were mentioning, like how do you make sure that everything's on the same place? So we were feeling pretty brave and tried doing something like that only for Spain at the beginning. So we did it with a few friends, and then after meeting Jordi Priu and a few of the early investors, Albert Feliu as well, we decided to take that to the States because we were thinking, well, it's going to be the same amount of effort to make it for Spain and for the States. We just have to write a little better in English. So yeah, we took that, took a few €1,000 of investment, and then it just kept snowballing.
And how did you make it to scale it that much? When did you click with the customers? Do you remember that day that they started coming like, holy shit, I've got 2 customers?
Well, the thing is, we didn't have any customers until the 2nd or 3rd year. Okay. So I was living pretty happy because I didn't have to worry about anything. I would just look at the sign-ups graph and I would say, we're doing a great job. But we were doing €0 in revenue. So one day, Jordi came and he said, man, we have to turn on the revenue thing because if not, we're just going to be spending money. So I was really afraid, and we put the code in, and then overnight we said, okay, this was free before, now it's not free anymore. What's going to happen? And I went to sleep, but I couldn't really sleep. Yeah. And I was thinking, shit, tomorrow I'm going to have to apply for a job in Telefonica or something. And fortunately, that worked. So initially, we were making a little more. It's not really a huge success story in the way that you see that everything works overnight. It took a really long time. But there were numbers, and there was the spending, and it was always higher. So we were raising round after round, and we raised a little more in Spain. I think it was it was something like 30,000, 60,000, 150, 300, kind of a million and a half, and then 5 million and 11 million finally. So the last two were very quick, like they happened just like that. But the others took forever, and we were always like trying to say, okay, this is really what's going to save us, and this is what's going to make everything. So very stressful.
And why did you decide to go to the States and not stay here?
You know, I didn't know what San Francisco was, so I just went there. And then when I came to the city, it felt like, shit, everything is here. How didn't I discover this before? And you have a city where you have like all the companies you've ever heard of, and I thought they were spread all over. So I don't know. Somebody told me everything happening in collaboration is happening here, and we were trying to go after bigger and bigger companies. So we met this guy in an Estale talk, who's half American, half Spaniard, and he helped us move there. And that worked pretty well. I think we were maybe at 20,000 euros in revenue at that point.
So I want to say, what were the numbers before you quit, and what was the reason why you quit Teambox?
Well,
didn't you like the new name?
Yeah, I hated the name. There's a story about that. Do you know the story?
No, I don't know the story. You guys know the story?
No, nobody knows.
Want to come on stage? No.
I wasn't sure if I told you. Yeah, the thing is we got sued for trademark infringement in the States. That's like a really big deal. So the
Especially
thing is,
in the States.
In the States.
Yeah.
Here it's like, nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the thing is I registered teambox.com and I was pretty happy, paid $1,000 for the domain. And I was like, awesome, I have it because I have the domain name, right? And then this motherfucker goes and registers Teambox like as a trademark in Canada and doesn't do anything with it. So he's not doing anything, and then he posts this post about how I fail building Teambox and what I learned. And I'm like, ha, got you, because in the States, when somebody's not using the trademark, then you get it back. So anyways, we're just continuing using the name. We raised a lot of money and so on. And then we're like, okay, now we're going to do the legal process to get the name back. So we sued the guy to get the name back, which actually belongs to us because nobody's using it. And he claims in the trial that he had been using it because he has like a couple invoices for $50 that he made to a friend. So yeah, we eventually lose the trial with, I don't know, something like 300,000 users. And we start offering the guy money, and we're like, okay, will you give it to us for $50,000? And he's like, no, it's worth much more than that. We're like, well, will you give it to us for $100,000? And he's like, no, man, it's worth way more. We're like, okay, how about for $250,000? So again, this guy hasn't done anything. He's just like a guy teaching Android. Like
he was bluffing, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have a business, or he's not like a multimillionaire or anything. So yeah, we were like, how about $500,000? And he still says no. And then we say, well, how about $1 million? You would say yes, right? It's $1 million. It changes your life.
Yeah.
Well, the guy said no, it's worth more than that. So we just changed the name.
Was he he was a professional poker player or something? Because he fucking
retarded.
lost.
That guy could be retired by now. He could be in the beach sipping mojitos, and people would ask him, "What do you do?" It's like, man, I registered the greatest name ever.
Yeah. Well, there's some people that live off of that. Actually, it reminds me of when you're looking for your Twitter handle for your company, and it's taken by somebody 6 years ago, never tweeted anything.
Yeah.
And you can't use it, you can't claim it. So I think it's the same. And then you didn't like the name, so you quit.
Yeah, I was like, I hate this shit, I'm gonna move on. No, what happened was, as the company was growing, we were moving up market, so we were selling more and more to companies. And that meant that first you start the business and you're more like doing something low touch, where you're selling, looking at metrics. But at some point for us, it was more about selling to bigger companies. And that means you go and you have to pitch to a group of people in big companies like Lego or whatever, and things move a lot slower. So I wasn't really motivated about the stuff I was doing. I had put in place a professional CEO and so on. So eventually I was just like, I'm not doing anything. I would just go to work and walk around the office and eat cake. So literally.
Sounds like a plan, but
so
not for you.
I gained a lot of weight during that time, and I decided to reverse that.
That's the kick. That's the kick.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just to last question about Teambox from my side is, what were the numbers so that people have an impression of at what point did you leave the company?
So as of last year, we're in the order of magnitude of 10 million in revenue. A little more, a little less, depends on the months.
Mhm.
But the team was already mature. It's a US company.
How
We
many
have-
people?
I don't know the last number, but it should be around 60.
Oh.
So 2/3 are here in Barcelona. The whole development team, support, and so on is here. And then sales, marketing, and like executive is in the US.
Cool. And then you decided to, because you ate a lot of cake, you decided to start 8fit?
Yeah, it was
What was
like,
the story? Let's say. Why did you choose 8fit over paellas?
it was a tough choice.
Yeah?
Now the thing is, you know, being an engineer, you start looking into why you get fat and why, like, how can you do it to get fit again? And then you start learning about all these things, and you learn that everything you knew was wrong. You learn that diet things are not diet things, and that working out a lot, like you don't need to work out a lot to stay fit and so on. So I started working out and I dropped 14 kilos, and everybody asked me like, "Are you okay? Are you sick?" I'm like, "No, I'm awesome."
I'm awesome.
So when a lot of people are asking you the same thing, you're like, I need to charge for this.
Yeah.
So I decided to build a company, and a few of my friends from Teambox wanted to do something new, so I was able to take some people over. First, just my co-founder Pedro, and eventually 3 more guys. So we're practically the same like product team, all part of it. And it's a lot of fun because it's still the beginning. It's like a family. You're still friends, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff.
Cool. For the people that don't know 8fit, shame on you first. Second is, can you pitch 8fit in 1 minute, including the promotion you are going to give us tonight? I was going to say 30 seconds for this, but since you came with the promotion, it's like, let's do it.
Okay. So 8fit is an app to get in shape. It's mostly for beginners, and we give you workouts and meal plans. So we teach you how to get in shape with 10 minutes a day, and we also teach you how to eat better. And today we're going to offer a promo for anyone who wants to try it. You can get 8fit Pro for half the price. So you get 6 months for $25, and we'll share it. So if you want to try it, you can give it a try.
Cool. Thank you. Actually, in what point of the process of switching jobs did you decide to create this cool company culture around 8fit? Did it come from the very beginning? Did it come from Teambox? Did it come from the founders?
So at first we were just trying to do something we liked. We weren't really thinking of making a company. So it was Pedro and me, and we were like wanting to move somewhere else. So we were thinking, what could we do that would pay for the bills? So we were thinking, well, we'll just make some kind of app on fitness, and we'll charge people, and that's it. So from the very beginning, we were a lot about moving around, doing something that's fun, trying to do something that doesn't require selling. And after that, once people start joining, is when we start more thinking about, okay, what kind of company do we want to be? And for me, culture is not something that you just say like that. It's something that you have to work for. So we tried to build a company on responsibility and discipline, where like everybody has a clear idea of what they have to do. That there's enough freedom that you can do almost anything you want, but I'm also trying to keep it very aligned. So what we learned so far is that as long as everybody has like a clear idea of what they're doing and the vision is shared, you can move very quickly, and that you have to also focus on doing as few things as possible and do them a lot better, because when you try to do too much, it's just impossible.
Cool. Did I fuck up about something in the presentation when I talk about 8fit?
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay, because
For
I
me-
wanted to ask you, oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, well, I think you were pretty accurate in the way that we like to be traveling, but we don't like so much to be far away from people.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a best way or a worst way to do it. It just works for us. Because in our case, what we're trying is we're already friends. We're trying to have that high bandwidth communication. And I think a lot of spontaneous ideas happen a lot more when you're having lunch or just walking around. So we like to do this together.
Cool. Actually, because you have published a few entries in your blog about this, what's the company culture? What's the very specific traits, like the core values of the company culture at 8fit?
So I think a lot of us are we're pretty general. We can do a lot of things, but at the same time we focus usually on one area. So for example, our designer can code, but he never codes. It's just like an extra skill he has. We all speak in English, even if we're like 80% Spanish. Or do we have
So
anyone
you took all the English-speaking Spaniards in your company?
Yeah.
Holy shit. That's why.
I mean, sometimes we don't speak perfect English, but at least we try.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, essentially we're in Berlin, and how many of us are Spanish? Like Spanish? Sandra and Thomas, but yeah, practically everybody's Spanish. We're just in Berlin, paying taxes there.
Yeah, well, I mean, like all
yeah.
Spaniards that go to Berlin. Like
Very expensive.
What else?
Yeah, I think in the culture it's more like we give a lot of flexibility, but we also pretty strict on what we have to do. So we try to not spend a lot of time in meetings. We just try to do one weekly meeting, which is around 15, 20 minutes. If something needs to be said, then we just go talk to the person and then leave it. We try to have a lot of guidelines of what we believe, because especially when you're working on something as difficult as fitness, it's very important to keep everybody aligned. So for example, what do we think about cereal? Do we think cereal is good or is it bad? Then that kind of stuff is something that we need to teach everybody and that needs to be aligned. Because if not, when you're talking to me or when you're talking to the designer, we're going to say different things. And that makes it really difficult to position the product.
Cool. And how do you convince people to travel around with you? When did you welcome the first members in your team, like co-founders, and then
the
go
easy
to?
part.
Really?
People are like, I want to travel. But do you want to get some work done? They're like, yeah, also.
But how do you convince them to say, okay, so you're leaving your house and you're going to be traveling all the time?
So I think it's a lot like an Erasmus. Some people have done it, and then they feel like they want to do it again.
How many people have done an Erasmus here? Oh, yeah, so you can understand what we're talking about. Yeah, cool.
And some people who haven't done it, it's like, oh, I wish I had done this. So it's like an opportunity to go somewhere else, be like uncomfortable, be in an uncomfortable situation and try new stuff. I think it's something that a lot of people want to do in your team, but it also takes like a very specific kind of person. So for instance, practically nobody's married or has a girlfriend. And if they do, they lose it. Except for Thomas. So yeah, it means that you're also restricting yourself to the kind of people that you're going to find. But we think, especially at the beginning, that that's something that works. There's a lot of talk about diversity and how it's important to have people with different age groups, different backgrounds, and so on. I think diversity is really important in a company, but at an early stage, it's almost better to be able to move very fast, to keep people aligned, and we're at that stage right now. We're only like 12 people. So yeah, it means that a lot of people are going to think very similar things, but at the same time, you move super quickly because everybody wants the same stuff.
And how do you find these people?
Most of the people are.
I mean, I read your blog, but I don't know if you follow his blog. It's probably one of the few things I recommend to read if you are in entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
but he published a really cool blog post about how do we hire, right, at AFIT?
Yeah.
Can you explain?
A lot of time is people we know that like the project simply. It's really easy to like a project about fitness. And the way we do it is, right now we're changing a little, so we're opening it more, trying to hire people from Berlin. So the way we do it is we come up with a position, we try to have a pretty good description of what that person is going to be doing. Sometimes it's like, okay, you're going to be mobile and you're going to do specifically these things, or designer. So we try to talk to a lot of people. And then the process that we have for hiring is, first we meet the people, we see if there's a good fit technically and also culturally, try to meet everyone. And once we have a pretty good idea and we're like, okay, we think you would do a good job, then we send them homework. And this is something that you're not paid for, but it's also something that's not useful for us. So we ask them to do something. It's easy for a developer or a designer because you can just tell him, hey, design me this feature. And then they make it. You review it together and so on. But it's not so easy for a product manager, for example, because you don't really know what they're going to be doing. It's a lot harder to screen for that. So after people do their homework, then we start like this 1 month trial or 2 weeks. And if they do well at that, then they become a team member and everybody's happy. So far, we've been onboarding about 1 or 2 people per month, and it's going pretty well. Being in Berlin, it's easy to find good talent. We've seen people coming from, right now we want to bring somebody from Delivery Hero, from Zalando, Bubble. So these are like cool companies over there. And just like in Barcelona, there's good companies, and as they grow, people want to look for new things. So I think we're finding pretty good talent right now.
Cool. And we said before, I explained more or less the order of the trips were exactly not very accurate. But you guys started off in the Canary Islands, right? Why did you go there?
Because it was February and it was the only place that was sunny. And there wasn't more than 100 euros.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason for somebody who lives in Berlin, actually.
So yeah, we started there. That was nice. There was the sun, the beach, surf, and so on. And then we went to Berlin because somebody told us that it was cool. So we just went to Berlin. We didn't know anyone about the ecosystem. We were just working at coffee shops like you, but it's a really cool city. And then because 2 more guys were joining, we decided to go to Southeast Asia, and also because why not? We've never been to Asia. So if you haven't been there, I recommend you to go. It's really a different world, especially in mobile. Like people use things very differently, and that's been nice. Now the problem is we wanted to be more people, so we were looking for this office, and that's why we're thinking, okay, what's a good city, a city we like that's not Barcelona, because we've already been here, and we decided to go to Berlin.
Cool. What did you learn in your part on your trip to Asia that you didn't find in Europe or the States? What did you learn? What did you find like shocking or like culturally?
Well, everything is shocking. Like you can fit 9 people in a taxi. You learn this in Thailand.
You can also feed them in Naples, but it's just.
You can have 2 babies in a scooter without a helmet also.
Driving.
Practically everything you want is a couple euros away. No, but it's really nice because in a lot of ways it feels like a holiday. The weather is very nice, it's cheap, you're close to the beach, but it's also a great place to be like a digital nomad, because you can do things like blocking an entire floor from a hotel, and you just stay there, and they bring you food, you have Wi-Fi, and you're working all day long. So for us, it was more of a retreat, where you just don't meet anyone, you just work, and go to the sun, and work out a little, and that was really nice. You also learn that there's a lot going on. Like the companies they have their own universe where they have their own Amazon, their own Google sometimes, and I just think it's really valuable for somebody, especially starting a company, just to know how it works. Like a lot of us goes to the States, and you're like, wow, it's completely different. Well, it's also different here.
Yeah, exactly, because like it seems that everybody's obsessed with going to the States, right? What do you recommend? You've been to Asia, you've been to Europe, you've been to Spain, which might belong to Europe in a sense, but what do you recommend?
So I really like the States. It's a magical place, and you have to go there if you're a developer, right? At some point. But it's also difficult to be there because first it's so expensive, and you're gonna be paying people over 100K per year, and then they're gonna leave for some other company because there's like the new cool thing, and you just can't compete. It's too competitive. Second, you need all these work permissions, which take forever, and I managed to make a visa, but it's so hard when you want it for the whole team and you just don't have that security. So after time, what I learned is that you can do a lot from here. So you can develop here and just market to the States and do things in English. And in general, that's going to be your best market because it's more mature, they're more willing to spend, but it's not the only one. So you can also do a lot in Europe, as a lot of companies in Berlin are proving, and I'm still not very versed in that, but I think China is going to be pretty awesome in the next few years.
You guys planning to go to China?
I would like to. It's just so mysterious. I don't really understand it. Do you understand China?
No. I've never been to Asia actually, so it might be my next step.
You have to go.
Cool. And how about Berlin? Because we, like all the previous speakers that we've had, we normally comment on the Barcelona ecosystem and how it seems like, oh, it's thriving, it's about to explode and go boom, but it never does. But it looks like this year is like good because we've had a few successful exits with the Trovit. We also have the cases like Wallapop, like going like really big and being hotly tipped as the new billion-dollar startup by TechCrunch. But how about Berlin? Why do you think Berlin is better if it is for you?
I just like it because there's a nice club scene and because I haven't been there, so it's like a new thing.
That's a good reason.
But honestly, I think there's a lot of similarities with Barcelona. Like both cities have a very good quality of living. Like you can just live here and be happy. It's not like tech is everywhere, like in San Francisco. So you go to a cafe and people talk about normal things, not about SEO and cost of acquisition. You just go there and people talk about their new shoes. That's nice. It's refreshing because you already spend so many hours at work. But I think something cool is happening there. That is there's a lot of big exits that are happening, and it's trying to be very credible to build a company and just do it for Europe. And what's happening is that these companies are reinvesting into the ecosystem. So you see very big successes like Delivery Hero or other companies who are profitable or very big.
Wunderlist.
Wunderlist as well.
Yeah.
There was another one.
Don't remember.
Still, like there's so much money just getting poured back into the ecosystem, and it's not like German people are very entrepreneurial in general, but what happens in Berlin is a lot like in San Francisco. There's just so many immigrants, and we come from everywhere. So we come from Spain, Italy, Greece, America, so really all over the place. So you get all these new ideas, and there's also the counterculture. So you get this feeling that a little like in San Francisco with the hippie movement and so on, Berlin has its own personality, and that really helps like drive those companies.
Do you think it really also helped that?
And it's so cheap.
Yeah, I was gonna say about it, like the prices of rent, because
So
these guys are located in Neukölln, which is like a neighbor that's a little bit far apart from the center. But do you think this is something that it makes your startup thrive?
It really makes me happy to pay €3 for lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think in many ways it's cheaper than Barcelona.
It's also bigger.
Yeah, it's also bigger. I don't know. It makes it easier. I mean, if we were to go to London, then we would need a lot more investment. And at the end, I think the advantages are comparable, but it's a lot cheaper to live in Berlin.
Cool. So we covered the team. We covered a little bit also the scene. What if we talk about the idea? How much has the idea evolved since the first day till now?
So for 8fit, not very much. We had this idea that we wanted to do workouts and we wanted to motivate people and make meal plans, and that's exactly what we're doing. So it changed in a few ways. Like we've been learning that a few types of exercise don't work. So more than changing, it's been iterating. One thing that this company has that's really cool is that when we put money in marketing, then we make money. So it's profitable. So for us, it's more a matter of getting all the money we can, investing everything we can, and just growing as quickly as possible. So it's not posted yet, but we're about to announce like a 2.2 million investment.
Wow.
And that will come in a few weeks, maybe. Is this thing that you don't really know if you should announce it or not?
It's closer. I mean, we're recording, but we can censor these for a fee.
Okay. So
or a yearly membership for
what's
life.
what's cool is on one hand that you can put money into it and then it keeps growing, which is super valuable if you have a company because it makes everything more predictable. On the other, it's just the same idea. We just want to give people that motivation and build a great content. Initially, we thought we'd be able to do it with a smaller team. I had this idea of being 6 or 7 people. Right now, we're past 12. So it gets complicated, right?
Actually, so we're not going to give you an applause because you haven't announced this. But actually, one of the blog posts that he got like really successful with it was how they closed the 200K round.
Yeah, that was pretty fast.
Back at the beginning of 8fit. Actually, I've got one of the images.
Yeah, we're technically a year.
Yeah, he used this in his pitch deck. Can you believe that? It's like, okay, so my team is this, we do that, we have this revenue, we have this acquisition, but I'm that badass. And he raised 200K with that. Can you believe this? Let's give him an applause right now, yeah. No.
People in London didn't think that was funny.
What is that?
I took it to London and people didn't like it that much.
That's why you stayed in Berlin. Probably they didn't like you in London, right? Can we go back to? It's like it's not.
Yeah, I have to take better pictures.
Oh yeah, it's a little bit disturbing, but it's okay. The idea it's all about being creative and innovation and all of that. So you really did it here. Cool. So what do you think it brings being a digital nomad to the group, and how are you distributed in 8fit? Because you talked about you are separate groups. Probably people here want to know, how do you distribute the work?
Yeah, so basically at the beginning everybody did kind of everything, but that was not very efficient. So now we're breaking down into groups. So in the company we have 3 groups today. We're gonna have 4. One is product, and product has their own developer, their own designer, their own analyst, eventually a product manager, QA, and so on. So we try to have like a mini company inside the whole team. And everything that happens in product is just making the app and making the features and making the user experience nice and so on. And that happens in mobile, backend, and all the systems. So that's like its own company. Then you have the growth team, which is new. We only have 2 people now. We're going to be growing to 3. And growth is everything that brings customers in. So running campaigns on Facebook, running them on AdWords, etc. And right now it's still small, but I want that team to have their own developer and to have their own like manager that has their budget and so on. Then there's a 3rd team that's content, and that's trainers making their own videos, their own photography, working with users. And then finally, there's a fourth team that's going to be coaching. That's more like trainers assisting users directly to help answer their questions and motivate them. So the way I see it is that the less these teams need to talk, the better. Everybody is doing, because that means that they have their own roadmap, they can advance quickly on that, and you don't have dependencies. So that's my goal. Now what happens every day is a little different.
Yeah, exactly. How's the work day? How do you distribute your day? How does a day in 8-Fit work?
So we wake up at 9 or so. We start working at more or less 10. Some people before, some people after. And that's the only rule. So you start at 10. We usually have lunch together. There's people walking around. There's practically no meetings. Everything happens in tools like the ones you said before. We try to use as few tools as possible because we're together. So before we used to have like a roadmap planning. Now we just have post-its on the wall, and we go to the wall and we say, okay, this is what we have to do. So no Trello. We do have Slack, but it's more like to post things and share something quickly. Actually, we're trying to use it less and less. We have one meeting a week where we just say, here's what I'm going to do, and that's it. And for everything you need, we send an email. And so far, that's working well. What I'm trying to do is that every person in the team has only one thing in their mind. That is the next thing they're going to deliver. And if you need someone else, then you just walk to them and say, I need you, help me deliver this.
It's really cool because when I was in his office, he's like, oh, do you want to see how we plan stuff? I was like, take a look at this wall. And there were like shitloads of post-its there. And that's it. No Basecamp, no Trello, nothing. Just these post-its. Well, that's good if you got all your team there working in the same room, right?
Yeah,
Can you explain how your offices are?
So right now we're in a big house. It's like a 200 square meter house with small garden and so on. It's actually an Airbnb. It's not a real office. So we're just renting it now, and it's cool because you really feel like you're at home. So you can play music loud. You can cook something in the kitchen. Do a few handstands on the wall, or without the wall if you're a badass.
Oh.
So that's really nice. What we try also is to not document things in tasks or anything, because sometimes it feels like you write down an idea and then you're a slave to that idea, and you keep seeing it for months and months, and then for years, and you're like, shit, this idea, when am I gonna do it? So I find it that it's a lot more relaxing to just forget about it, and then if it's important, it will come back. So it's very zen, but it works for us.
Oh shit. And then how do you report to investors? This is something that also might be interesting in a company like yours.
So that's one of my favorite things to do every month. Actually, for this company, we didn't need to have investors at the beginning, but we still did it. And I'm happy we did it because it makes you report to somebody. So I feel like it's not my company. I feel like I'm working for someone else. And when you do that, you feel like you have to keep things in order, to keep contracts properly done, to make sure that your numbers go up every month. And the way I do it is every month I send out this really long email. It's like 4 pages, and I report on absolutely everything. So I say, here's the news, here's marketing, so this went up, this went down, this was awesome, this was shit. And I try to be really honest with that because investors are already in, so there's no point lying. If there's a problem, it's better that they know now than 6 months down the road. And it also always ends with a note of how can you help? So at the end, there's always like, we're looking for an iOS developer, so send us your friends. Or we want a soccer player to invest, so please put us in touch with somebody. So you just ask for these things. And the more investors you have, you can open that circle. And that's actually, sorry for talking so long. But, that's also another thing that we're experimenting with in this company, which is not having real VCs, more having like some people that you bring in for the money and because they're great, they like the company and the vision. But I'm also opening an allocation on Angel List, and this is more like open to anybody. Actually, you can still invest if you want. So if anybody wants to invest in the company, you can still do it until Friday, I think.
What are you doing here? Just go invest.
Take my money. And that's been really great because once you get an investor, you not only get their money, but you get them to work with you for free. So it's like a consultant, but instead of paying the consultant, they pay you.
They pay you, yeah.
You can only win. So what we're trying here is we're trying to get people who have experience in different things. So we're trying to bring CMOs of companies that have done it big before. And that means you can ask them things like, hey, I want to try TV. So how does TV work? And they're like, I know exactly how it works. And that's really good because you have all these board of people that you actually report to, but they're trying to help as well. So it's nice.
Actually, on AngelList, you can find the job offerings they have in 8-Fit, so it's really cool if you want to check it. You guys
Only
need
Berlin.
people. And only in Berlin. You need to relocate. Actually, about that, about working remotely, because we have covered it briefly, and I want to pose a couple of more questions. So, what's your tip for personal productivity?
Sorry?
What's your tip for personal productivity?
Oh,
Like I do this,
That's a
and
good
really,
question.
really helps.
let's see. I'm horrible with this, but probably focusing on one thing at a time. Like just keeping email off. You get a couple hours. Like I feel like I'm more productive in an airplane because you just cannot do anything else. So you really get to the things that you don't want to do. So for me, it's keeping inbox zero and trying to focus on one thing at a time.
Cool. And how have you got any kind of advice for working while you are on the road, like on planes or on the beach or in Thailand? Or what's your advice?
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at that, right? One is with the team, and when you work with the team, I think it's better to try to minimize the iterations. So if you're going to define something and say, hey, we're going to do this, then the better you define it, the faster it's going to be done and the better. So I try to put up these requirement documents where you detail exactly how something is going to work, and then it's simply like, okay, I give you this, and you've done projects as a developer, so you know that if it's well specified, just take a couple days and you do it. And then for myself, I have so many interruptions, but I try to keep inbox zero all the time I can, and whenever something is something that I cannot do immediately, I just file it somewhere and get back to it later.
Okay. We're just going to conclude this with a set of really quick questions, like really random stuff, and then we'll give like opportunity for our entrepreneurs here to ask you questions. First of all, some people here want to leave their jobs and they come here for inspiration. What is your advice for starting up?
As a new company,
As a new company, yeah?
well, I haven't done it, but I think it would be really valuable to work with somebody who's done it before or to join an early stage company. Just because there's so many things where you're going to make mistakes that you either make them yourself and then it takes forever,
Yeah.
or you make them with somebody else and then you learn so much. But what I would say is have a really clear idea of what you want to do. If it's something more sustainable, then focus on revenue as early as possible. If it's that you want to raise capital, then find out what you're going to need. Like for example, okay, I need the product done at this stage, and really prepare the rounds ahead of time. Because if you're going to need funding, then it's really about having enough money and being able to go on with this team.
And what is the best advice that has ever been given to you in life?
Let's see.
Like something
Probably-
inspirational.
Probably just, it's not really advice that was given to me, but more is just realizing that when you do something, it takes almost the same effort to do something halfway than to do it really good and really go big. So a lot of times you're thinking, oh, I'm just getting started, I don't know anything about this, but that kind of inexperience that you have is also like some strength that you can use. And especially in Spain, you see a lot of companies that try to do something small just because we're here. But it doesn't take a lot more effort to go international or to go big, and I think it's worth doing because if you fail, you're going to fail big, but if you make it, you'll make it big. And it's practically going to be the same amount of work.
That's a really good advice. I'm going to come at you with really quick words. I'm going to say a word, you need to reply with the first word that comes to mind. 8-Fit.
Fitness.
Travel.
Work? Why? Why do I say that?
Digital nomad, hello. Teambox.
Red Booth? Sorry, it's just the first word. These are kind of quick associations.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Product design.
UX?
UX, okay. Paella.
Oh, lemon.
Lemon. Oh, you're the lemon guy. Startup grind.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you. And last question before I fuck off and then I leave you your questions come at Pablo is everybody's got a useless superpower. Okay? What's yours? I can give you a couple of examples, but I'm pretty sure you I'm blown away. Applause. Everybody stand up. Give it up for Pablo. Stand up. Holy shit, it was not prepared.